So this next section that we are going to talk about is economic growth. And in particular, we are going to talk about the Industrial Revolution. Everything connected, everything in this section is directly connected to the Industrial Revolution. The war is over. And so we can expand once again. By the mid-1700s, the way goods were made began to change. Now, this first appeared in Great Britain. The Industrial Revolution in Britain happens about 30 years before it comes to the United States. People in Britain, an island nation with a lot of rivers, built mills along the rivers to be able to use water power to provide them with energy for their plants. People left homes and farms to work in the mills and earn wages. And this is really what we call the Industrial Revolution, a vocabulary term. It's a time when people leave home to go to work. They're earning money through wages. And it's also a time of huge economic and industrial growth, the Industrial Revolution. Now, in the United States, it started around 1800 and in the New England states. Now, the New England states, remember, has poor soil for farming. And so a lot of people, it made a good option to leave their homes and find work elsewhere. They can't produce much on a farm. They're subsistence farming. Why not try to make something of yourselves? The geographic location was also perfect in the New England states. They had a lot of rushing rivers and streams to use water power, again, like they had used in Britain. Other natural resources, trees, for instance, to build your mill was very important. A lot of ports to easily ship your products in. Most importantly, however, merchants in New England had money. They had capital. They had the means to invest. And their capital was essential. You need money to build machines and to build industries. And so this was very important and vital to expanding in the New England states. Now, some argue that with revolution would have never occurred. And we're going to talk about some of these inventions. And this is very key to your test question, so I would focus in on some of this. Oliver Evans of Delaware developed a flour mill. It needed only 2 workers. One to empty a bag of wheat into the mill, and the other to roll away the barrel of flour after it had been crushed. Huge advancement. Imagine sitting around and hand crushing wheat into flour. It took quite a few people to do that. So this was a huge technological advancement. In 1793, Eli Whitney of Massachusetts invented the cotton gin. Now, cotton has a seed in it, and people, prior to the invention of the cotton gin, would have to pull these seeds from the cotton fiber by hand. Now, the cotton gin, with its invention, enabled one worker to clean cotton as fast as 50 people working by hand. This has huge benefits to the southern plantations because they can keep more slaves in the plantation growing, maintaining, and picking cotton, and fewer people cleaning cotton. So they're allowed to expand their operations. Very important. Due to the growth in industry, in 1790, Congress passes a patent law that protects the rights of those who develop useful and important inventions. A patent, to this day, gives an inventor the sole legal right to the invention and its profits for a certain period of time. Still very important today, patents. Now, Samuel Slater is a very important person to talk about. He worked in a factory that spun cotton thread. And he did that in Britain. And remember, the Industrial Revolution starts in Britain years ahead of the United States. Well, Slater memorized the design of the machines that he worked on every day, and was able to sneak out of Britain in 1789. Once he came to the United States, he was able to then duplicate this machine. I want you to think just for a second of all the small parts. Imagine taking apart your cell phone and memorizing the parts and how everything goes together, and then coming and trying to build your own cell phone. Incredible feat that Samuel Slater, I can't even believe that he accomplished this. He established a mill in the New England states, and it was an important stage because a huge employment increase. He was able to, in 1790, employ only 10 people, who in just 10 years employed 10 times that many, over 10 times that many. A huge growth in the Industrial Revolution. Now, we're going to talk about Francis Cabot Lowell as well. He was very important to the textile companies as part of the Industrial Revolution. In 1811, he went to Great Britain and made detailed drawings of the factories and the machines that he saw in Great Britain. Now, when he came back to the United States, he borrowed $400,000. $400,000 in 1811. I can't even imagine how many millions and millions of dollars that is right now. And he built his own company. He improved on the design of the British power looms and figured out ways to make it even more effective than the British. In 1814, he opened a textile plant in Massachusetts, and his major improvement to the factory system from Britain was he created a new arrangement in which all processes are under the same roof. Prior to this, what he saw in Britain is you would clean the cotton, would be in one building. Well, then it would have to be transported to another building where it was turned into the thread. And then it was transported to another building where it was dyed or created into clothing. Well, Lowell put all of that into one building. It cut down huge on transportation costs, and it made everything more effective. He launched what is called the factory system, a system bringing manufacturing steps together in one place to increase efficiency. Again, another important part of the Industrial Revolution. Now, there was the concept, again by Eli Whitney, to develop interchangeable parts. We don't even understand why he had to come up with this. That's how far interchangeable parts have moved into our world. We don't even think about it. But in 1798, he was commissioned by the government to make 10,000 rifles in 28 months. That's clipping them out pretty quickly. And at the time, guns would have been produced by hand. But Whitney said, I can't do it. I simply cannot produce 10,000 rifles in 28 months. So he devised this method that would produce interchangeable parts. That means you make large quantities of uniform pieces that could replace any other identical piece. The easiest one that I can think of and say as an example is a tire. You take a tire off, you put a tire on. It's interchangeable. But everything that we have today that I can think of has an interchangeable part, an identical piece. They pluck them out in the factories, millions and millions of the same piece, and pluck it together. You lose that piece, you go to the factory, you get a new one. Interchangeable parts changed how manufacturing was done. It also, if you think about it, lowers the cost of many of these products because interchangeable parts can be produced quickly and efficiently and not by hand. Instead, factories can do it, machines can do it, and they can do it quicker. Well, so far we have been focused in on the Industrial Revolution in the North, but agriculture also expands, and it is due to the Industrial Revolution. Southern plantation owners, we know, used slaves, and once the cotton gin, which I talked about a bit when we were on the cotton gin slide, it encouraged planters to raise larger crops. And in fact, from 1790 to 1820, cotton production rose from 3,000 bales a year to 300,000 bales a year. A huge boom in agriculture. And that's just in cotton. It's doing the same thing in all agricultural products because they can do things more efficiently, quicker, and production is easier. So what does all of this mean? Really, it means that the United States is able to become more independent economically. We can support ourselves due to the increase in technology. As more cotton and wool factories went into operation, we became less reliant upon British-made clothing. Instead, we can produce our own. It's vital. It's extremely important that the United States becomes economically independent. We can become a global factor because we don't have to have clothing made from Britain. We can build it ourselves. We are no longer dependent upon anybody else to provide for us. We can do it on our own. So we're at the end of this section, and here's your journal question. Do you think that new technology was necessary for the Industrial Revolution to take place? And as you know, you need to explain why, and you should probably include some examples in there. I gave you quite a few examples of different technologies, and you need to explain if you think that technology was necessary.